Hello and a very warm welcome to Raising the Dots, connecting you with the people, ideas and technology reshaping our world through Braille and tactile literacy. I'm your host, Dave Williams, and it's fantastic to be with you once again. Coming up this month on the podcast, we'll be learning from Joe Stephen. He's the brains behind the Multiline Braille support found in the JAWS for Windows screen reader, and we'll also be meeting Mr. Dot. Welcome back to Raising the Dots. Now, don't forget, throughout 2026, Dot will be at many conferences and events around the world. Check out the Dot website over at dottingcorp.com. Stay subscribed to the newsletter and keep in touch with your local distributor, and we'll let you know when we're going to be in your area. We also love to hear from you, so if you have a comment, question, suggestion, observation or anything else, or you'd just like to say hi, then drop a line to info@dottingcorp.com. That's info@dottingcorp.com. Now, coming up this time on the podcast, we will be learning from Joe Stephen. He's the brains behind the Multiline Braille support introduced in the JAWS for Windows screen reader last September. We've heard, of course, from Joe on the podcast previously, but in this segment, we are going to hear an extract from a webinar recorded in January where Joe demonstrates for you how you can get the most from Multiline Braille support in JAWS.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, I am actually coming to you from the lovely Tasmania, south of the mainland of Australia, and it is just after 4 a.m. And I'm going to be talking about, as you know, the DotPad and JAWS. For those of you who haven't seen the DotPad, it is the world's first multi-line Braille display. It is literally a Braille screen with 8 lines of Braille, 20 characters per line when it's running with JAWS. It has a main area which is used for the multi-line Braille and also graphics. And it also has a line below the main area which we use for status information when run with JAWS. With other screen readers, it can also be used for text output. There are 6 buttons on the top panel of the display. We have a left arrow, then we have functions 1, 2, 3, and 4, and a right arrow. So those buttons are used for navigation. And the Braille surface is covered by a thin membrane to protect the dots. And if you are living in a hot region of the world, like it is in Australia at the moment with summer, I use a cotton glove to read the DotPad because it stops the clammy finger dragging on the plastic. So just a little tip in case you are in a hot country and you feel like the DotPad surface sticks to your fingers. So the JAWS screen reader is a very powerful screen reader, as you know, and it works really, really well with the DotPad. And I'm going to go through lots of the things that JAWS can do with the DotPad today. So I have a long document on my screen at the moment, and JAWS is currently in what we call wrapped mode, which is basically where the text is wrapped across the display. Now, when we talk about multi-line Braille, it's not like just one line of Braille which happens to wrap onto a few lines and then the rest of the display blank. Literally, the entire display gets filled with Braille, and JAWS figures out how many paragraphs to grab to put onto the display, and it figures out exactly where you get up to at the bottom of the display so that when you press the pan key, the cursor moves and regathers text from that new location. So it's a seamless page turn. So right now I've got my favorite document up, which is Psalm 119, which has got 176 verses. And it starts off 1, blessed are those whose way is blameless, who walk in the law of the Lord. And at the bottom of the display, we have the end of verse 2, which finishes heart. And if I press the panning
Braille
key,
pan right.
and you'll hear me press pan right because I've made it so JAWS will tell you what keys I'm pressing. It starts off with verse 3. And then if I press
Braille
it
pan
again,
right.
it will start off with verse 6.
Braille pan right.
Again, verse 8. And so it's a perfect continuity in wrapped mode. Everyone probably knows about wrapped mode because that's the default mode. But what I'm going to do now is show you the split modes. Oh, but before I do that, let me just tell you about the status line. So the status line is the single line at the bottom of the display.
Top of file, 1 list art.
And it shows you not only the JAWS status information, which is like the cursor in the main document and whether you're in PC cursor mode, whether you're in structured mode and things like that, but it also shows you where on the dot pad the cursor is. And that's because when you're using a multi-line display that doesn't refresh as fast as a single line display, we don't blink the cursor. And now if I look at my dot pad, I am going to see the first part. It says 301 PS, which is what would normally show on the status area of a focus display or something like that, which is that means that the cursor is physically at pixel 301 and we're in PC cursor mode and structured mode. But then the next piece of the information on the status line is 05,01, which means that if I was to look on the fifth line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and column 1, that's where my cursor is. So that's a really important thing to know when using the dot pad. The second piece of the status area, that single line area of the dot pad, shows you the line and column of where the cursor is on the dot pad. So remember, the first part of the status line shows you where the cursor is in the document. The second part shows you where the cursor is on the dot pad. So say if I move my cursor in one word to blessed, now it shows 05,04. So it's on line 5, column 4, and that's where the cursor is. Now on the dot pad, the cursor is a solid cursor, dots 7 and 8. So you can read it. It's just that because it's not blinking, it's not so obvious where to find it. All right, so I'm now going to bring up the JAWS set Braille view dialog, and I'm going to do that by pressing F1 and F4 together.
Braille F1 plus F4, select Braille view dialog, list 1, list view, wrap mode, 1 of 9.
And it brings up a list of modes. Wrapped mode is the default mode. That's the mode we are currently in. That's the mode that is normally selected when you are in a document.
Cropped mode, 2 of 9.
Cropped mode is turned on automatically when you enter a table or a spreadsheet, but you can turn it on manually if you, say, want to look at the formatting in your Word document. Indentation, headings, centering, left or right justification, etc. You can feel the layout of the document if you go to cropped mode. So cropped mode, unlike wrapped mode, instead of wrapping the text across the line, it will show you, for instance, the first part of all the lines. And then when you pan, it will show you the next part of all the lines. It's like a window into the page. Rather than reformatting the text, it will just show you the text as it is. So it might take 3 or 4 displays to show you the entire line.
Buffered text, 3 of 9.
Buffered text is where you can split the display and show 2 different parts of the same document, or even 2 totally different documents. I'll show you that right now, actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press enter here on buffered mode.
Enter, edit.
And now on the display, the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 lines will say show where my active cursor is in the document. And then there's a horizontal line across the whole display, which shows you where the split is. The last 2 lines of the display show you where the active cursor is. But now I can move the active cursor. Say I go down to verse
Bottom of file. 174. I log.
174, say. So now the top part of the display shows verses 174 to 175, and the bottom part of the display shows verse 1, and I can pan through them independently. So I can now pan through the active part of the document. I can go back to
left.
verse 173,
Braille pan left.
171, etc. And in the bottom part, now I can use keys F1 and F4 to pan just that little bit of the split area.
Braille F4.
Except, oh yes, walk in the law of the Lord. Verse 2, blessed are
Braille F4.
those who keep his testimonies, etc. So we've literally got two independent things showing on the display that you can pan through independently. Now, this is absolutely fantastic for comparing products or for doing research. You can, for instance, go to the web, split the display, choose buffered mode, then go back to your active document in Word, and you'll keep the web document in the bottom part of the display, and you'll have your active document in the top part of the display, and you can pan through them both independently. That's buffered mode. And I'll go through the options in a sec for controlling these modes, but let me just continue through the modes. So I'm just going to bring up
Braille F1 plus F4. Select Braille view dialog. List 1, list view.
and
Annotations 4.
the next one is annotations mode. In annotations mode, what happens is when you're in your Word document, you can be arrowing through your document, and when your cursor hits a footnote, endnote, or comment, all of a sudden the display will split and show you the footnote, endnote, or comment text in that bottom part of the display. So you can read the comment, footnote, or endnote without actually losing your context in the main document. So annotations mode allows you to read live annotations as you're in your document. Very, very useful.
Attribute indicators 5.
The next one is attribute indicators. Now, for those JAWS users who use a single line display, you will remember that you can go to attributes mode, and the text of your document is normally replaced by indicators like B for bold, U for underline, I for italic. And if you've got text that has multiple attributes, then the attributes will be rotated, like B for a second, U for a second, I for a second. In split attributes mode, what we will see is the line of text with the indicator directly under the text. So you can literally put your finger on, say you've got the words hello world, and hello is bold and world is underlined. So you can put your finger on the H of hello and then move it straight down to the next line, and you'll see the B for bold that corresponds with the H for the hello. Or if you put your finger on the W of world and move it straight down to the next line, you'll see the U for underline, or whatever the attribute was. So literally the attribute indicators follow the cursor on the line below your active line. That's attributes mode. So that's really handy for proofreading. Go to the next one.
Speech history 6.
The next one is speech history. Speech history split mode is really good for deaf-blind people because it will enable you to see the Braille representation on the first part of the display, or on the top 6 lines, and what is sent to the synthesizer in the bottom 2 lines of the display. So sometimes JAWS says things that are not shown in Braille, and that's a good way of being able to read both the Braille and read what was sent to the synthesizer without having to change modes. It's just both on the display at the same time.
Translation split 7 of.
Translation split is really useful for those who are learning a new Braille code. You can have grade 2 at the top and say UEB at the bottom part of your display, or a separate something else. Basically 2 different Braille grades. So you can read the same text on the display wherever your cursor is in whatever document you're in, but you'll be able to see it repeated with two different Braille grades, really handy for learning how to interpret a new Braille code.
JAWS cursor, 8 of 9.
The next one is JAWS cursor. This is a little bit like what you have when you use NVDA with the dot pad, in that the top part of the display is showing you the focus and the bottom part is showing you where the JAWS cursor or the mouse is parked. So you can monitor something that the JAWS cursor is sitting on in the bottom part of the display while you're reading with the PC cursor in the top part of the display.
Window text, 9 of 9.
Next one is window text. Basically, you can have the text of a different window on the bottom half of the display while the PC cursor is showing where your focus is at the top half of the display. It's good for scripters who want to script JAWS to, say, work in maybe an application which brings up another child window with text in it, and you always want that window to be visible on your display. Okay, so that's all the default split modes, but some applications...
Wrap mode, 1 of 9.
Just go to the top of the dialog again, because I'm going to go down and show you some options in a minute. Some applications have more split modes. So, for instance, Outlook enables you to turn on a mode which shows you the preview of your message in the bottom part of the display while you're sitting in your inbox. And you can literally pan through your message without leaving your inbox, which is really, really handy. So basically, you turn on your message preview, you turn on this option in the split mode in the Set Braille View dialog in Outlook Classic. It only works in Outlook Classic at the moment. And you can literally sit in your inbox, arrow up and down, and see not only the message, who it's from, the date, the sender, etc., subject, but you can read your message at the bottom part of your display without hitting enter, and you can pan through the message with your F1 and F4, just like you could pan through any split message. Other applications that support extra custom modes like this are PowerPoint. You can view a presentation and see your speaker's notes in the split area of the display. In Microsoft Teams, in your chat, you can have the live part of your chat in the top part of the display, and you can read the history of your chat in the bottom half of the display. And any scripter who is clever enough can basically script JAWS to create new split modes. So whether you work in a CRM environment, or whether you work in a call center, you could, for instance, get someone to script JAWS to use the dot pad real estate more efficiently. I'm going to go over to Excel now.
Screen sharing meeting, webinar outline, timetable, sample.xls.xlsd Excel.
Okay, for those of you who don't know what a spreadsheet is, it is like a table of information. I'm sitting now in my favorite little sample, which is a school timetable. So if you can imagine, across the top row, the first column is blank A1, the next column is Monday, the next column is Tuesday, next column is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Then down the left-hand side, we have times, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And then under Monday, we've got your subjects: maths, chemistry, biology, free, English, social studies, etc. So right now on the dot pad, I'm showing column 1 or column A1, which has the 9 o'clock, the times. Then I have a vertical line. Then I have the column Monday, maths, etc. Now, what I see is that the text is perfectly formatted. When I look down the times column, because it's numerical data, everything is aligned on the last 0. Now, if it was decimals, it would be aligned on the decimal point. So it's like how a sighted person would look at numeric data. So if it was numeric data that you could add up, you could literally add it up, units, tens, and then if it's textual information, it will be aligned on the left margin of the column. So it literally formats each column so that you have white space to fill the rest of the column, so that each column takes up exactly the same number of cells. So it's perfectly formatted. And this is done on the fly. And it doesn't matter whether you've got translation on or off. The text is perfectly formatted. So I'm going to arrow across to the next column.
Monday, B1.
So now I'm showing the Monday column on the left of the dot pad, and then I'm showing a vertical line, and then I'm showing the start of the Tuesday column. It's not quite wide enough to see much of that column, but it's wonderful because you can read the whole column. You don't have to pan around to try and figure out, well, on Monday at 10 o'clock, I've got chemistry. I don't have to arrow around, and I can see, in the slot at 9 o'clock, I've got maths, and at the slot at 11 o'clock, I've got biology. So tabular data, imagine with speech, you either have to listen to the whole row or you have to navigate around by cell, and then you have to have a perfect memory to figure out what was in the column above, what was in the row before or after. But with Braille on the dot pad, you don't have to memorize as much because you can literally see the column, the text above, below. You can see the previous column or the next column, depending on whether there's enough room, how wide the columns are. And another really cool feature is if I arrow to a cell,
Blank A1, Monday B1, Tuesday C1, 9 o'clock. Tech Studies C2,
which has a comment on it. So there's a comment on Tuesday C2 Tech Studies. And at the bottom of the display, it splits automatically. There's a horizontal line. And then under that, the comment shows for that cell. Comment, Tech Studies is
Braille F4.
My favorite subject. That's the comment for that cell. And then you arrow away from that
Wednesday,
cell, that
English
disappears, and shows you the rest of the spreadsheet again. So it splits to show you comments or formulae in your spreadsheet. I'm just going to arrow across again to see
Thursday,
the next
3E2.
part of the spreadsheet. So if you pan and the column doesn't quite fit on the display, it'll automatically move that column as far left as it can on the dot pad to make most use of the real estate. So I'm just going to pan.
Braille pan right.
And now I'm showing the Monday column at the left of the dot pad. If I pan again,
Braille pan right.
now I'm showing the Tuesday column at the left of the dot pad and the beginning of the Wednesday column. And the column headings remain visible on the display. So say you arrow down 20 rows into the column, the column headers will still remain visible at the top of the column so that you can see which column you're looking at. So you don't lose the column context, even though you've arrowed, and a sighted person might not be able to see them unless they've frozen the row containing the column information. So Excel is an extremely nice experience used with multi-line Braille. And I can't stress that enough. Having multiple lines of context, both in a document for a presentation or in an Excel spreadsheet, is the holy grail of Braille. You cannot get better than this. And I think that, once people start to appreciate multi-line Braille, why would you ever go back to single line? I don't know. And the dot pad represents an amazing value for money unit with great support from JAWS.
Our thanks again to all the webinar team and Joe Stephen for that insightful demonstration of JAWS for Windows with DotPad. Mr. Dot, aka Clarke Reynolds, is a Braille artist from Portsmouth in the United Kingdom. Welcome into Raising the Dots, Clarke, or should I call you Mr. Dot?
Mr. Dot sounds much more preferable these days, especially when I go to schools and they shout, Mr. Dot, Mr. Dot. So it's a wonderful, wonderful name, and I love it.
Well, fantastic. And of course, being as Dot very generously sponsored this podcast, I mean, who else would we have on other than Mr. Dot himself?
I know, it's great. And obviously, the beauty of social media, I joined in LinkedIn and Dot Inc. turned up, and it was like I was amazed at what they're doing, and I just had to reach out, and we're here now.
Let's talk about your art then. You are an artist, but let's go back a little bit to perhaps your childhood and some of your earliest influences. I think you started to lose eyesight around the age of 6, is that right?
Yeah, so I lost my sight in my right eye from the age of 4 to 6. That was in the 80s. And I remember like it was yesterday, you know, even though my doctor's name, Dr. Tudor. And I remember having the eye patches, the funny drops. Even on the patch, they used to put the sticker where the pupil used to be in funny shapes like anchors and pirates and stuff like that. So it was a really weird time for me. But back in the 80s, I didn't realise I was vision impaired. No one talked about it. I was just left to my own devices in the back of the classroom. And I wore glasses. That was my only kind of recognition of like having a visual impairment, but not knowing I had a visual impairment.
Right, and you have retinitis pigmentosa?
Because there's no history in my family of RP, I'm now going through this second round of genetic testing at Moorfields to find out what makes me tick. I've dealt with sight loss a lot easier, I suppose, that someone is not bound to the arts. You know, I've been an artist since the age of 6, ironically, and professionally for 25 years. So sight loss for me on the second stage of my journey was not, oh God, I'm losing my sight. It was like, well, I've got a brain, I've got a memory, I'm creative. So I've kind of like made the best of it with the cards that have dealt with me, basically.
Right, and tell us a bit about that memory. How much does your visual memory of time before your eyesight changed influence your artwork?
Well, because I'm a visual artist off the bat, and I love colour. There's a painting by Franz Marc, and it's called The Yellow Cow. Now, when we're young and we're told what a cow looks like, we draw it with black with white splotches or white with black splotches, you know, the old Frisian cows. Imagine as a young child seeing a painting where the cow is bright yellow and purple splotches. It blew my mind. It was like the grass does not have to be green. And for me, that's the idea of the sight loss. You know, I love working in all colours. So I know the colour, but I don't see it how I used to. So I'm creating new memories of how I perceive colour now. And that's a strange thing. That's why I enjoy and love being blind, because every day is a new day as a creative artist.
You worked for a time as a dental model maker before your vision really started to deteriorate quite severely. What skills or sensibilities or values from that experience do you bring into your artwork?
Well, you know, when you're growing up and you had these aspirations like, oh, I'm going to be a fireman, I'm going to be an architect or an archaeologist, you don't go around and say to your friends, you know what, I'm going to be a dental model maker. Now, the reason why I chose degree in model making, because no one's taught me how to draw and paint. And in my we talked about the sight loss, but in my early teens, I suffered from bad kidneys. So I left school and didn't get back into education till the age of 18. So I got no GCSEs apart from A in art. And I went for that journey of MVQs and diplomas. And I did a first year fine art, but no one was there, no tutor was there. I think they were all down the pub, to be fair. And someone said you can do a degree in model making. Now, I'm a huge film fan. I mean, I'm named after Superman, so it was in the blood straight off the bat. And I thought, oh, it'd be really interesting to use my creative influences, get a skill-based degree behind me, and then I could, you know, work as a production designer, you know, use my imagination. So when I got my degree in model making, it was just as the financial crisis hit. Basically, I stacked shelves for 10 years. Never gave up in the dream of being an artist, and I still created art. And then when I finally got the job as a dental model maker, it was like it was fascinating. It was every day was a new day, and then that's when I started to notice a change in my eyesight in my other eye. And I thought, you know, because it was fine detail work, that I need stronger glasses. So I went to the opticians. They sent me to the hospital. I had 4 ophthalmologists looking into my eyes. You know, that good old phrase: look up, look down, look left, look right. Sat me down. And they said, Mr. Reynolds, do you drive? And I said, yes. And they said, hand your license so that you're going blind. And that's how I was told I was going blind at the age of 32. So I found my career and then I lost my career. But like I say, you know, being blind, it's just one little step in my journey of being who I am today.
How did that experience of model making influence your subsequent artistic endeavours?
It wasn't such the model making. It was more, I say, it's the work ethic, which I still take today from my degree in model making to my job as a dental model maker. My influences in my art world have come since the age of 6. I was always fascinated with the art form pointillism, because I used to say to my friends, those images I could see through my bad eye. It was like looking for 1,000 dots. And when I was, diagnosed with sight loss and lost my job and everything, one of the big influences was my friend gave me a Perkins typewriter. And obviously it leads on to this what we're on this podcast for. It is because I learnt Braille in 3 weeks because I saw it as a pattern. And because my brain was geared to patterns anyway, dots, it was just a great transition. And that's when my life began, when I learnt Braille, if that makes sense.
You don't just use Braille in its very kind of literal meaning. You use Braille almost as a sort of emotional or sort of symbolic way of representing shapes or colours or texture or light or shadow. Can you just talk us through a little bit your design process?
Yeah, so the Braille journey happened when I got that Perkins typewriter, kind of up to 6 years ago now. I learnt it and I did a piece using buttons. So the buttons were 2 centimetres in diameter. And I did the A to Z in Braille. I sewed it onto some denim, cut up some old denim jeans and made a good tapestry. And I took it to a friend who could read Braille, and she used her whole hand and she instantly knew it was the alphabet. And that was a light bulb for me. It was like, why is Braille's, this tiny significant dot that's just hidden away? It's like a metaphor for blindness in a way. And it was like, I can blow this up. I can tell stories, using colour. And I've been pushing the boundaries of Braille as an art form for the last 5 years, creating my own very, very colour-coded Braille, so that sighted people learn colour through Braille, through colour association. And that was amazing. That was like, it took me a month to figure out 26 colours that work together. So again, using colour theory, using my memory as a trained artist, and then pushing the boundaries of how did we learn ABC as a child, and taking that concept and Brailleising it. And so the dots just create the shape. So when I blow up the Braille and give it a colour, it becomes a defined shape. And it's not just about, like, say, I use dots, but also you use different shapes and almost like creates Braille typeface. So it adds another layer to the story. So, for instance, one of the main pieces that I did, just as when the Queen passed away, I did the Union Jack in Braille using the words from the national anthem, and I just kept on swapping out the pronouns. So, God save our gracious Queen, long live our noble King. Because after 70 years, we're going to make that mistake. But the Braille dots were silhouettes, I suppose, from what you see on coins of the late Queen and King Charles. So I used them as the kind of like the tactile dots. And it was great. So I added another layer to the story that I was telling. And now I'm the leading Braille artist in the world.
So how do you decide what message or feeling you want to convey? Is it just responding to world events or is there something else?
In a way, it is. Responding to the environment around me. Like, I suppose I'm like an Andy Warhol of the Braille world. My latest piece, I did the Jaws movie poster in Braille. And Jaws had just turned 50 years old. You know, when you're watching a film like Jaws, like you want someone in that audio description to give you that terrifying moment that the Jaws is attacking. I looked at the script of Jaws, and again, my model making kind of career took over then. I looked at the audio that wasn't the audio that the people were speaking. It was the audio that the cinematographer or the director would use. So in my Braille version of the Jaws poster, describes the moment Quinn gets eaten by the shark in the movie. And it describes it with such graphicness. So, the idea that sighted people will see the Jaws poster, but a blind person who can read Braille will get more out of it just by touching the piece. And that's what I love about my artwork.
One of the aims of your artwork, of course, is to create art that is engaging for both sighted and blind audiences. Just talk, if you would, a little bit about the response or feedback. Have you had any surprises along the way?
Well, I mean, it's amazing. So first of all, I'm a visual artist. I don't like, oh God, I've got to make art for the vision impaired. It just so happens that I chose the medium Braille and you can touch the artwork, which is great in its sense. The idea of having big signs in exhibitions saying you must touch the artwork, which is fantastic. And I think one of the moment that really kind of got me in the heart was I had a blind friend come to my exhibition, Decoded Braille, Decoded Me, which was the colour coded Braille. And you get a colour coded key for sighted viewers to decode the Braille. And so the mum was blind, so she was decoding the art piece through touch, and the daughter was decoding it through the colour. And they were having races to see who could decode each piece the quickest. And for me, that truly transcended what my art was about. It was all about inclusivity instead of segregation. And that's what I do with my artwork. It's about bringing everyone together. It doesn't matter if you can read Braille or not. The idea that you can touch the artwork and just explore the piece, you know. And I think that's a great way to show the art world that there's more than just a visual art behind a barrier. And obviously, you know, the journey that I'm on is after going to schools. And I teach Braille to all children to break down the stigma attached to sight loss. Because Braille is a code, right? And those kids, at that age, they love a code and they just absorb it. But the idea is those kids ask questions about sight loss that adults don't ask because there's no filter with children. You know, and I want to break down the stigma attached to sight loss. You know, the idea that blindness is complete darkness, you know, and as being a blind artist, it leads to questions straight away.
What have you learned about what touch means for people in galleries? You know, as blind people, we're used to the idea that you go into a museum or an art gallery and you're told, oh, you got not to touch anything. Have you had that conversation with galleries around exhibiting your work? Clearly, you want people to touch the work, but that's unusual.
I think, yeah. I mean, it's an interesting concept, especially when the artwork itself for lots of zeros on the end. The idea of people touching the artwork, it's part of the story. So whoever's buying that piece knows that, you know, thousands of people have touched those dots, but it's part of that journey. It's not like an art gallery where you have to pick up my artwork with white gloves. I use durable materials, so hardware in wood, spray paint, exterior paint. So they're hard-wearing surfaces. And even if it does scrape or get damaged, that's part of the artwork. It's almost like, you know, when Banksy decided to shred his artwork. You know, that's part of the journey of that art piece. So for me, there's no difference to my artwork and sculptures. You know, just that I do have that sign saying you must touch artwork. And you find it's the adults, it's the sighted adults, because we're just grown up in a society where you can't touch anything, right? They're the ones you have to, like, you know, you can touch the artwork. You can touch the artwork. You have to persuade them to touch the artwork. So I find that quite funny when you're telling grown adults that they can physically touch something.
You often speak about blindness not as a deficiency, but as a different way of perceiving the world. In your journey so far, what were some of the biggest misconceptions that you had to confront, either held by others or yourself?
I think the biggest misconceptions, I think, is for all the blind community is the misconceptions of blindness itself. You know, the idea of if you're blind, it's complete darkness and you just be guided constantly, wrapped up in cotton wool. That's not the case, you know. Every day's a new day with me, depending on light conditions, depending on where I am. And obviously being a blind artist, the idea is, how can you work with colours and stuff like this? You know, and I talked about how I'm creating new memories of tonal differences. You know, I may not see them in its brightness value, but I am exploring who I am as a person and as an artist. So for me, I tell everyone, I love being blind. I can't change the fact, but I'm inspiring a generation of VI children that they can become creatives in a visual world. And for me, I would never have thought that in you know, with that diagnosis 12 years ago, that I would be inspiring so many children.
What do you think the public still misunderstands, and what do you most hope to change?
I need to have an exhibition alongside the likes of Damien Hirst for people to see blind artists in its full. You know, the idea that I can not exhibit in disability exhibitions mainstream exhibitions. You know, my artwork is chosen on its merit, not because I've come a tick box in this industry where it's really hard to kind of break out of this tick box exercise, you know, because organizations can get funding because of their diversity, you know, and I don't want to be a tick box. You know, I want to have a rejection. You know, I want to exhibit on my merit, not because of my disability.
Just talk, if you would, a bit about your connection with your locality. You're from Portsmouth. You know, you've been involved in murals or Braille trails. How does your locality, your part of the world, influence your work?
Portsmouth is the most accessible city in the UK. We have 5 major train stations, 2 competing bus services, and I can walk around the island in 3 hours. You can't get lost. And for me, obviously being by the sea, but community is a very community-driven city. And they embrace inclusivity. I did the Braille trail at the Victoria's Festival, which was amazing. The first, I suppose, Braille trail at a music festival where 50,000 people are there for the music. But, you know, when you hand out those trail maps, that the kids are going around searching for Braille, it's amazing. I've done Braille word search at the Mary Rose Museum, also creating large Braille toilet signs as part of that. So, yeah, I'm embedded in the community, but I want to be seen more internationally. I do a lot of stuff in America, and you know, obviously London is the epicenter of the art world for me. Ambassador for a major charity, Fight for Sight, also patron for Victor UK. So I just want to be seen everywhere. But Portsmouth is dear to me. It's, even though it's hard being an artist in a densely populated island, I love that competitiveness. So for me, yeah, I love Portsmouth.
Can you share a project where community input has perhaps shaped one of your original ideas?
Yeah, so in a way, majority of the bigger community, the murals that you said, have been community-led. So, for instance, my first ever Braille word search, I went up to Durham Oriental Museum and I worked with a certain age vision impaired group who said, "Oh, we can't paint." And it was amazing. So they were given tiles, 10 centimetres by 10 centimetres, and just using the idea of what does touch mean to them, just painted those tiles through expressionist paint. And then they chose words, how they explored the Oriental Museum. So I created a word search based off that. So I've done 4 community art projects with the word searches, and each one is different because words, we glossed over the idea of a Braille artist, but I'm a word artist. You know, words give you so much energy, and you know, the idea is I'm taking those words, I'm Brailleizing them, and I'm giving out messages. So for me, yeah, words are endless. So my artwork's going to be endless, from the giant Scrabble that I did in America to the word searches to future projects, which I'm planning as we speak. And the legacy is continued by, I've just become an author, self-published book, Mr. Dot and His Magical White Cane Adventures. First in its UK, a Braille book as standard, a Braille book for everyone, not just for the visually impaired community, a Braille book that would sit on any library, in any normal section, in any children's section, and anyone can pick that book up and learn Braille through dino fossil paw prints. And also it's got Braille in, but dino fossil paw prints, and that's what Mr. Dot is all about.
Obviously, you're not done yet. You've got a lot you still want to do. But what do you hope long term that your impact will be?
I really want to work with a big corporate, a big brand, you know, to show them that I can be as big as the likes of Mr. Doodle of this world, who I met recently, literally the other day at Car Boot Fair, and I had the selfie with him. Now, I strive to be as big as those artists. You know, I believe that Mr. Dot has a place in the world, you know, that I can work with Dot Inc., you know, on special projects. You know, I can exhibit in Seoul, Korea, in Dubai, in New York. You know, I can give talks, inspirational keynotes, speaking about the passion, not just of blindness and Braille, but who I am as a person. You know, I believe that the world needs people like me to show that, obviously, a lot of blind people have dark days, but, you know, you need characters to inspire, and I think, the time is right. I'm 44 years old. I wish I was 20 years younger doing this, but there's plenty of dots in me yet.
If there were no constraints, what is the most ambitious project that you would like to realise?
Oh, if there was no constraints, I would like to do a piece with 1 million dots. It could be the Bible. It could be a Shakespeare sonnets, his plays, something that in my colour-coded Braille, and I just want to fill a whole room. I think the exhibition would be called "If These Walls Could Talk" /touch. And I think that would be an amazing thing for me to show. Yeah, I don't know. I just picture it in my head that one day it will happen, that I would do a project with 1 million dots. And hopefully that project will be at the Lego house in Denmark, because I love Lego. Lego is my biggest passion after art, So, and obviously, again, they have dots.
What are you working on right now?
So I'm working on Mr. Dot Shed. I know it sounds right. I've always wanted my own studio at home, and the garden is big enough. And so I'm literally painting a shed that's kind of encapsulates this energy. So it's bright yellow, black. It's going to have the Braille alphabet over the top. It's going to, and inside it's going to be yellow, blue, pink. It's very pop art, very Andy Warhol. And I'm going to create a YouTube channel, a Mr. Dot YouTube channel, where I talk about the Braille. I may have interviews, so watch this space. I may have to interview you for my YouTube channel. So I'm working on that. And then I'm working on an Arts Council project, a big project. It's going to be a £30,000 project that I think will put me on the map next year as one to watch, as it'd be my Tracy Emin unmade bed moment. That's all I've got to say on that.
Okay, well, we will stay tuned. Where can listeners learn more about your work?
My new website, www.mr.uk.com. So obviously it's a very visual website. I wanted to be a visual because I'm a visual person. But if you read what each of the projects, the exhibitions, the bespoke dots, the image is there for the sighted people that don't bother reading websites, right? So if you read this website, it should be on all e-readers, should be fine, and you'll get the energy and the encapsulation of each art piece, each exhibition, each project, and that's why I took time working on this. I wanted the emotion in the words. The image is just a byproduct. The words are the important part. So please do check me out. You can DM me on my Instagram, which is linked into my website, which is Mr.Official. I answer any email, any DM. I'm here. I'm an open book, and I just enjoy who I am, and that's Mr. Dot.
There we are. And that website address again is www.mrdotuk.com. Mr. Dot, aka Clarke Reynolds, Braille artist, thank you so much for joining us on Raising the Dots.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
Thanks again to our guests this time on Raising the Dots. And if you have a suggestion of somebody you'd like to hear from, that all-important email address, it's info@dottingcorp.com. That's info@dottingcorp.com. But from myself, Dave Williams, and the rest of the team, until next time, bye for now.